Greetings, fellow strategy fans. There is yet another Steam sale, this time focused on real-time strategy, but it also includes city builders and 4X strategy games, a veritable feast for us, the geeky inner circle of gamers. This video is split into two parts. First will be a quick-fire list of my recommendations, highlighting the very best strategy games with significant discounts right now. For each game on the list, there will be my typical too-long-didn't-read summary with a brief overview of what kind of gamer that game will appeal to help you decide whether to press that purchase button. Don't worry if you've missed the boat on the Real-Time Strategy Fest, all of these games are regularly on sale, so the next one will not be too far away. Part 2 of this video, however, will be a more detailed look at my personal number 1 recommendation, an RTS that I believe has flown under the radar for many of us. It's well rated, is an absolute blast to play, and has a new-ish DLC, so stick around for that, or simply fast forward if you're impatient. But that's enough gibberish. Let's get into the quickfire list of games that any strategy gamer should consider, in my humble opinion. Kicking off the list of recommendations with a 75% discount is the one and only Rise of Nations. First released in 2003, this is a true RTS, comparable to Age of Empires, but more expansive, as it takes you through the ages from ancient times right up to the modern day. With an absolute ton of nations to choose from, you extract timber, metal and oil from the ground, grow food and create wealth and knowledge as you research technology and create an army that fights with a satisfying rock, paper, scissors set of rules. It's a fantastic game to play with friends against the AI, and there is still a competitive online scene for those that enjoy PvP. Honestly, this game is criminally underrated and an absolute must for anyone who enjoys RTS, and on Steam you can pick it up in a 4-pack bundle to force it upon your friends. Next up is a more controversial game. Oh, we don't shy away from unpopular opinions here, and it won't be the last one, trust me. Now, Age of Empires 1 and 2 are obviously well loved and a great choice. 3 is okay, though not for everyone. But right now, I want to talk about Age of Empires 4. Let's be honest, it never stood a chance upon release. The shoes it had to fill were too big. However, it is a good game. It just is. I really enjoy how they brought back walls with a vengeance, and the single-player campaign is a genuinely interesting history lesson as you watch videos on how badass a trebuchet is and use real tactics from that time period. The different civilizations have varied gameplay mechanics that might not be perfectly balanced across the board, but they're fun. Another true RTS that needs no introduction, but needed a bit of time to get out of its predecessor's shadow. And with a discount of 50%, it represents good value for those looking for a modern take on the classic RTS experience. Next up is a must-have for anyone with a remote interest in World War II tactics, and in particular, the hardware. Steel Division 2 is RTS combat on steroids, and would basically be the result if Total War and Company of Heroes had a beautiful baby with a moustache. There's no base building, this is a deck building experience with an insanely detailed roster of squads and equipment, including planes. In each match there's a deployment phase for you to deploy some of your deck of squads and machines, with the rest being deployed over time, so you can control them in real time. Usually you'll be pushing the front line forward, moving your infantry between forests for cover, and sniping with your tanks. Eventually using a barrage of smoke and artillery as your men charge up a hill towards almost certain death, in my case. Whether you enjoy competitive multiplayer, playing as a team with friends against the AI, or fancy yourself a strategist in the dynamic campaign, Steel Division 2 is a game that can look a bit dated and also off-puttingly detailed, but it is actually way more fun than it looks, just pure fun, and it's dirt cheap too, with 75% off. Next up is the latest darling of the admittedly niche, detailed RTS World War II sub-genre. Call to Arms Gates of Hell Ostfront is an unnecessarily long name, but it is also one of the best gaming experiences of my life. Yes, it looks rough around the edges, but this is an RTS that is designed to be experienced in the first-person direct control mode. The campaign is so well written and executed that it genuinely hit me in the feels. You connect with the soldiers and their gritty World War II experience, while getting to manually control tanks and blow shit up. Every bullet can be managed in each soldier's inventory as they scavenge weapons and carry ammo for each other, so this one is perfect for you control freaks out there. Beyond the campaign is a thrilling competitive multiplayer scene that I am actually terrible at, along with a very rewarding dynamic campaign. This isn't for the faint-hearted, as the learning curve takes time to overcome, unless you have already earned your stripes in the Men of War series. it's 75% off, which is a steal. However, if the price tag and learning curve are a little too intimidating, I recommend trying Men of War Assault Squad 2 first, which is far cheaper while having a similar style of play for you to dip a toe. Company of Heroes 3. Okay, hear me out first. Obviously, Co 1 has the best campaign and Co 2 has the best multiplayer. However, Co 3 is so much better now than it was at launch. The turn-based Italian campaign is a great light version of a grand strategy game, if you found Hearts of Iron 4 too overwhelming, and the multiplayer is pretty good now, even compared to Company of Heroes 2. The North African campaign is unfortunately dog shit, partly because it's so short, but the PvP and turn-based campaign make Co 3 a genuine consideration. Now you can purchase it at 50% off. I don't think the DLCs are worth it though. If you want insanely good value, then look no further than Iron Harvest. The gameplay is very similar to Company of Heroes, and the campaigns are genuinely decent. You can tell they put a lot of effort into them. The multiplayer is basically a poor man's Company of Heroes with added mechs. The mechs are cool, but they don't do enough on their own to make up for what is otherwise a rather boring skirmish mode. But with an 85% discount for the base game and deeply discounted DLCs that expand upon the campaign, Iron Harvest and its DLCs are a no-brainer for RTS gamers who enjoy a decent campaign, especially if you like a bit of diesel punk with mechs that can walk through buildings. Another dirt cheap, amazing story comes from Homeworld, the remastered collection. The first Homeworld campaign is life-changing. It's like a sci-fi movie. Honestly, the soundtrack, the story, the creepy stillness and the calm voices of pilots as they dogfight and blow up, and especially being able to capture ships. This is a sci-fi RTS campaign that you owe it to yourself to play, and if you look at the price, you really aren't spending much for it. This remastered collection also comes with Homeworld 2, which has a decent campaign, but the skirmish modes are basically dead. Trust me, and just play the first campaign. Yes, the controls are fiddly, but I have a video with tips for beginners, so you can learn all of that in a few minutes. I'll link that and a more detailed review video for most of these suggestions in the description below. If you want RTS on a huge scale, then look no further than Cossacks 3. I did want to include Supreme Commander in this list, by the way, but it's not on sale at the moment. But definitely pick up that and Forged Alliance when they're next on sale. Anyway, back to Cossacks. It's a typical RTS with pikemen, cavalry, muskets, and particularly fun cannons, but the USP is how many units you can create and how you can group them into huge formations to make controlling insanely large battles a reality. There is some resource gathering and wall building if you like that sort of thing, but really this game is about large-scale pitched battles with a ton of smoke, which might be a bit much for your potato PC to handle, but I'd say it's worth it. A 66% discount is not as generous as others on this list, but it's a pretty cheap price for some large-scale battles. A bit newer and more of a resource-focused city builder than an RTS, Against the Storm has a 50% discount. I won't dwell too much on this game, but it's here because the game really is a bit of a gem. The aesthetic is rather soothing, if not ethereal at times, and the mechanics themselves are rather clever. Your job is to fulfill orders by creating production chains based on the limited resources you discover by hacking your way into a variety of different glades. It constantly keeps you on your toes as you run out of resources and form new production chains in a race against time, or the storm, to fulfill orders, with an overworld map where you venture further into the unknown as you try to delay the big reset, where everything in the world is destroyed except your city. If you enjoy production chains and don't mind a bit of pressure, Against the Storm is a serious consideration, and for a game released in December 2023, a 50% discount is rather tasty. Next up is another city builder that will change your life. Frostpunk burst onto the scene in 2018. It's a Victorian-era story of survival in a world where eternal winter forces you to constantly feed a hungry heat generator in the center of your settlement. With temperatures going ever lower as you try to feed your people, keep them warm, and research ever more efficient and innovative ways to get through the eternal winter. Surrounded by an unforgiving landscape, you send people out in search of other survivors, and to scavenge resources left by those that have already perished. It's an intense game, you will lose, and you will be stressed, but my god, the excellent soundtrack brings everything together as you finally get to that big storm at the end of the game and just batten down the hatches, hoping you've done enough for your people to survive. Honestly, I don't care who you are. This game is so cheap and such a moving experience that you should just buy it. Enough said, really. Just make sure to set the kids to work ASAP and put sawdust in their soup. So that's my quick-fire list of recommendations. Before we move on to the number 1 recommendation, I just wanted to thank those of you that are still here, as I know it's so tempting to just turn off to another video. I hope you're enjoying it, and please feel free to comment all the amazing games that I've missed. So, what's this last recommendation, and what makes it so special? You'd be forgiven for thinking this game is just a money grab on the basis that it's an RTS based on an already popular franchise. However, this RTS is surprisingly detailed, a la Men of War, Gates of Hell Ostfront, and even small snippets of Steel Division. It has a detailed campaign where you unlock upgrades and purchase them for individual squads and vehicles, and a continental map where you travel between RTS missions to trade and repair your army. So, what is this game? Terminator, Dark Fate, Defiance. Honestly, this game went under my radar at first, but I've been playing it for the last few days and I'm falling in love with it. I assumed it would be light on detail and a shallow RTS, where it hopes that the Terminator setting would do most of the heavy lifting. But oh, no. This game is proper fun RTS. In the base game, you play as the humans, fighting against the machines, like in Terminator 2, where you see a glimpse of the future, with a giant machine shooting pink lasers at the human soldiers. But even better than that, in the DLC, you can play as the machines, destroying the pathetic humans. It's genuinely detailed too, with a nice collection of upgradable units with fuel and ammo that run out and need to be replenished, with guns that drop on the floor and can be picked up like a grenade launcher, for example. Humans caught out in the open are lambs to the slaughter, with holding up in buildings being the only real way of surviving as you try to outflank the machines. Yes, there are cover mechanics, though those outside of buildings are a bit clunky. Whereas machines come in with devastating but often slow units that at times feel overpowered, but that's because they're Terminators! And it feels perfect for the franchise. And it is honestly an absolute blast to play, especially with the superb sound effects and soundtrack. The game released in February 2024, and the DLC is rather new, so even with a discount, this game is more expensive, at least compared to the other games on this list, which have been out for much longer. But this game feels like Gates of Hell Ostfront, set in the futuristic Terminator universe, which for me is an insanely good combination. The graphics won't blow you away, and the only real criticism I would level at this game is that the campaigns are a bit short, but you can spend much time unlocking new slots for each of your units to upgrade them, and mix and match a variety of weapons too, so there's an element of deck building in this somewhat dynamic campaign, which can be approached in different ways, which I know will appeal to many of you. If you're unsure, there is a free demo for you to try. Not always, but sometimes. There's one right now, and there was another a few months ago, so I doubt you will have to wait long if one isn't available right now. Well, that's my list of recommendations, but what are yours? I wanted to include the Paradox games such as Hearts of Iron 4, Stellaris, and Crusader Kings 3, but this is already a long video, so a quick honourable mention for them is all I have time for. If you have any recommendations, please let us all know in the comments below, as there are so many games I didn't mention on this list, and you guys have a habit of recommending games I would have otherwise never heard of. I'll include links to my detailed reviews below in case you find those useful. Feel free to like and subscribe if you fancy, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.